Money Matters, episode 2. We're going to talk about investing in real estate. So let's start. However, I feel like I should defer to you on this one and to start with kind of the more on the real estate side, and then can kind of dive into, the loan side of things, and then we'll kind of spur off on some things.
Well, my question to you, what is an investment property?
Yep. So an investment property, in terms of the loan, is a property that the borrower is not going to occupy and isn't a second home. So a second home kind of has some loose guidelines, which can be interpreted different ways by underwriters. It actually kind of infuriates us because there's really it's literally like it's a different like environment is what they say. So if your primary is in Salem, you buy at Lake Winnipesaukee, it's a second home. It's not an investment.
Yeah.
But then it gets kind of tricky. Like if you live in Salem but buy on Canterbury Lake in Salem, it's technically a different like environment, but that's second home. But investment.
So a non-owner occupied property.
Yeah, non-owner occupied property. Exactly.
All right. So if it's owner occupied, it can still be. I guess there's a different. You're going to use different financing.
Correct. Right. So it technically can be an investment in the actual word investment if you occupy it. So that's where it gets a little kind of gray in the loan side of it. Investment house is not owner occupied. You can be a primary resident, own a 4-unit, but buy it with an FHA loan, live in one of the units, and it's an investment. It's an investment home.
Yeah, it ends up being that exactly. I mean, a lot of people say that your greatest investment is your house that you buy, and for single family homes, I beg to differ.
Right.
It's an asset or it's a liability. It's not an asset.
Right.
Your single family, your home that you live in,
right.
It's not making you any money.
Right.
It's, costing you money. And eventually when you sell, you hopefully will make some money.
Make money.
But, in the time being, if you're living in it and you're paying that mortgage, it's more of a liability.
Right.
It is still an investment, I guess, in the future.
Right.
But from to kind of clarify and make sure we kind of set a groundwork with what we're talking about is, an investment property. I would definitely consider owner occupy of a multi-unit dwelling, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mm-hmm. For financing's sake, 2 to 4.
Right.
Units. To be able to get into something like that, or an investment property from, if you're not occupying it, 2 units and above.
Yep. Right.
Anything above. Yeah, and I think that's just a good kind of way to, make sure that, you're looking at it, we're looking at it right.
Right.
We're looking at it clearly. Like there's certain financing from 2 to 4, owner occupy.
Yep.
But once you hit that 5 unit and above, even for the investor, there's different financing. It's commercial lending, right?
Right. That's exactly it. So it's commercial. I don't know enough about it to really dive into the whole aspects of it, but I know commercial. It's more so like a non-QM. Does the loan make sense?
Yep.
Do you have the money? Do you have the income to support? And even sometimes if you don't have the income, if you're buying a $600,000 house and you have $1 million in your IRA or in a liquidable account, the loan makes sense to do because you have the money, you have it. So it's a little bit more tricky when you dive into commercial. But yes, there's obviously different avenues for all that.
And I'd like to probably clarify that in no way do we know it all, but we know a good amount.
Right.
Lending side, multifamily owner investment side. He's dealing with this stuff all the time, trying to help clients get into properties and get into multifamily properties, from the owner occupant side. So that's probably a good, make sure that we focus on that.
Yeah.
And then I own 10 units over 3 buildings, so I have some experience in that. But again, there's just stuff that I don't know because I haven't been doing it 50 years. There's a local agents that have been doing it forever that have seen it all and done it all. So, if you are wondering something, you have questions, let me know. I can probably answer them. But if not, I know where to get the answer.
Right.
And we can go from there. And same with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know not when you own or occupy, it's easier to get into. I will say that, especially when it's your first investment house, because a lot of people don't realize that investment properties you need 20 to 25% down
Right.
for 95% of cases.
Yeah, if you're not owner occupying,
Right,
if
if you're-
it's strictly an investment
Right,
property. Yep.
right. So if you're not going to live in it, you need that big chunk of a down payment. And then there's even cases where, sometimes we can use a portion of the rental income, sometimes we can't. Sometimes we add it to your income, sometimes we add it to offset the monthly payment, which all makes a difference in how you qualify.
Yeah, because 75% of that rental income is typically, just
Yep.
as a guide, is what they can use towards your income
Right.
to help you get that property.
Right.
What's the down payment for an owner occupied? Like,
Yep. So down payment for owner occupied. If you're going conventional, generally I say 15%. If you're going FHA, it's still the 3.5%. Same thing with the VA. Nothing changes on that. So in terms of if you're buying your first one, FHA is probably the route you're going to go because
what if you, but hold on, I think you skipped over something that's probably pretty crazily important if you have access to it.
Oh boy.
VA. You said FHA is 3.5% down, and then
Yeah.
you said something about same with VA. But what's VA for
Oh,
down payment?
yeah. You still obviously have to pay the closing costs unless you can negotiate that with the seller or you take a higher rate to get those credits, the lender credit. But still, you can buy a multifamily investment for 12 grand, 10 grand, whatever the purchase price is. Obviously, affects closing. But
Yeah, right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, the title costs and stuff like that. Yeah, it's nuts, and it's a great way to start, building. Right.
Right.
How long do you have to live in the property before you can refinance it? It's
to refi 6 months.
yeah, 6 months. So then, do you need to have like 20% equity to refinance into a different loan? Do you have to have?
No,
Does it matter?
nope. So it doesn't realistically matter. If you're going to go to conventional, you need at least 3% equity in it. So
Yep.
nothing essentially.
Yeah, you should probably have it.
You should realistically
time.
you should probably have 5% because then you're kind of bumped into a better mortgage insurance category and kind of everything gets better once you get to that 5%
Yeah.
mark. But you can really, as long as you have more than 3% equity, you can refi.
Yeah.
So it's not even like you have to stay in that loan for an extended period of time.
No, and if you're looking to scale using and getting more multifamily investment properties or getting other properties, is it worth making sure you got the 3% equity by either doing some work to the property before that time, or if it comes to it, if you've got to pay, I imagine you could probably pay out of pocket to get that equity.
Yeah.
By making extra payments,
Right.
or
Yeah.
when it comes to refi time.
I mean, I believe the general rule of thumb is if you make one extra mortgage payment a year, it's like 7 years off your loan or something.
Yeah, so you can
There's
build.
just about there it is right there.
You can build up some serious equity just by doing that. Exactly.
Right.
And it all comes down to a strategy and what your plan is for the future.
Right.
And talk to me or Matt about what those plans are. And we can kind of guide you in the best avenue to be able to do that.
Right.
I mean, the guy that just got the VA 0% down 3-unit, he had just previously, had enough money for a 20% down for a 3-unit.
Right.
Because he sold his primary. So he was VA with his primary. He sold it,
Yep.
bought a 3-unit, and freed up his VA benefit to
Right.
buy the other 3 units. So he's
Right.
got an investment property and now an owner occupied. He's got 6 units
Right.
in the span of 3 months.
Right. I think that's important to note too. You can do the same thing with FHA. So you can buy the house, you can buy an owner occupied investment house.
Yep.
3.5% down. And then after 6 months, you could hypothetically refinance into a conventional rate and term, and then you can go buy another one if you're willing to move
Yep.
and go live in that property as an FHA loan. So there's ways to hack it if you're willing to move from multifamily to multifamily.
Yep.
If you're willing to do that, there's ways that you don't have to spend $150,000 per house right on the loan.
I wish I did it earlier. I wish I did it earlier because obviously once you've got young kids and a wife and all this stuff going on and life happening, it's
tough to pack up and move.
Yeah, it's a little bit tougher, but I mean, it's one of those things where it's a part of your retirement strategy, your
Yep.
investment strategy. Some people will do stocks, crypto, all this other stuff.
Yep.
Some people do strictly real estate. Some people do a mix of both.
Yep.
And
it's all about diversifying.
yeah, diversifying, right? And picking something that you're like kind of motivated in. Like I can't get motivated in stocks necessarily.
Right.
Because I don't have a lot of control over that.
Yep.
But in real estate, I do have some control over,
Well, you have control over, the upkeep of the property, the tenants that are living in the property, the rents. The rents are obviously a little bit market dependent, but you can still set it how you want.
Well, and if I want to get higher rents, then I make my property better.
Right.
Yes, that all costs money as it kind of gets there, but that takes time. But yeah, if I want higher rents, then I make the unit very nice and I make the property very nice. But I can control that.
Right. Right, exactly.
If I don't want high rents or if I don't want good tenants or whatever the case may be, then I just
let the property do what it's
go.
good, right?
And that's okay too. Some that's
Right.
some of these old mom and pop old time landlords that have had the properties 20 years. I mean, that's what they've done.
Right.
You'll see some of the properties on the market and you're like, oh, I wonder what rents are. Because when we go to analyze, like, is this a good property or not? We look at the rents. We take those numbers and we plug them all in. We'll get to that. But, you look at some of these numbers and you're like, they're getting $950 a month in rent.
Right.
Like, I paid that back in like 2007 or 8.
Right.
Like, what happened?
Right.
How are they still paying that?
Right. How are they still
how's
making
that
the mortgage?
rent yeah. How's that rent not gone up? But like these people have owned it 20 years and their mortgage is a lot different than the person that's going to be buying it.
Right.
So, it's
I mean, I just look at the house that I personally just bought. Like my mortgage payment is
congrats,
more,
by the way.
Thank you. Is my mortgage payment's more than a lot of the guys here.
Yeah.
But they bought, 3, 4, 5 years ago, or they sold their house, put a massive chunk of money down.
Yeah.
So it's like, when you think about that, and I think a lot of people, they don't understand that when the rents are being set. Like if they just bought this property and their mortgage, and say on a 3-family or 4-family, the mortgage is $4,000 a month. They gotta make that back somehow. So like they gotta find a way to make it back somehow.
Well, and rents rents have to go up.
Yeah.
As long as they stay within what market rents are for the area, because then you're not going to find anybody, right? Like you just won't find anybody.
You're almost gonna price yourself out of the rental market.
Yeah. So I mean, if normal market rents are $1,500 and you're asking $2,000, well, you might want to have something that's like better than normal market.
Yeah.
That's all.
Right. But yeah, no, and then I know in terms of the loan side, again, there's other ways other than just your conventional FHA, VA to buy as well. There's the the DSCR loans. For those that don't know, it's debt service coverage ratio. It's essentially where the market rent, the total market rents on all the units are more than the estimated principal, interest, taxes, and insurance payment. As long as that's the case, so if your property cash flows, which it should as an investment home, you can get the loan.
Yeah, you want it to.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then it's not one you even want to keep going
Right.
going with.
Right, and honestly, that's why I like that loan, is because it shows you, we talked about it, it shows you right away whether your house, if you're at the market rent, is going to cash flow. Rates are higher because you don't have to show income. There's literally, as long as you have the money to close on the loan and the rent's higher, you're good. You get the loan.
Let's stop on that for a minute. It's a no doc loan. They'll check your credit and a bank account.
And then you order an appraisal.
And you order an appraisal.
And then you get $500,000.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Right.
You have it. If you can show a bank account with the money in it,
right.
Again, a bank account, you can get this loan. Yes, interest rate's higher.
Right.
And the reason they can do that is because they've already ran the DSCR score and say that, okay, the rents will cover this property, so they feel safe on that loan.
Right. And you're putting 20% down.
You're putting 20% down.
So you have a lot of skin in the game. So obviously the actuary is telling them mortgage insurance drops off at that number. So clearly the actuary is telling them at 20%, if someone's putting 20% down, they're probably not defaulting.
Yeah.
Probably.
Right. And that's a great one for investors.
Yep. Self-employed borrowers, especially.
Self-employed. If you've got partners too, That's probably the best loan you want to, type of loan you might want to go with. You can close in an LLC. Then your LLC has an operating agreement, which dictates, how the property runs, how the ownership is. And,
Right.
There's a lot more that goes into that, but yeah.
Right.
Yep.
You have the ability to at least close it in the LLC. You don't have to maneuver all of that outside of it.
Yep.
So that's obviously a benefit there too. And then this is less common, but we've actually seen people ask about bank statement loans for investing. And that is just you add up the total money coming in that's related to your business. We just take 50% of that, and then there's your income. So if you have $100,000 coming in from your construction business, and you're not showing any income, we can use $50,000 a month if you constantly show that over 12 or 24 months, and that's how we qualify you. Again, the rates are a little bit higher because you're still not showing income technically on your tax returns, but we can use the money if we have it. So there's other avenues. There's not just your typical conventional the FHA, the loans you hear about all the time. So, ask us. We'll guide you any way that we can. There's more options than you probably imagine on getting these loans.
Yep. And it just depends on what you're trying to do, what your goals are.
Yep.
There's options.
Right. Right.
And then speaking of goals, depending on what your goals are, you might want to be looking at certain properties, certain types of properties. What the people I've been working with and, helping and myself, since I'm not owner occupying, I don't want to look at a 2-unit.
Right.
Unless it's a screaming deal for some reason.
Right. Right. Is it because the cash flow is not there? Is that why you usually see that, or is it just not enough units for you, just particularly?
Yeah. So the price of we'll take the Manchester market. A price of a 2-unit in Manchester, for about another $30,000, you can get a 3-unit.
Right.
And then when you get that 3-unit, you're actually going to be having an additional rent coming in, so you'll be able to make more money essentially.
And for those that don't know too, sorry to cut you off, $30,000 on your purchase price, it's like $150 to your monthly payment, and you can collect another $1,500, let's say.
Yeah,
on
exactly.
The rent. So that's why he's saying that it's worth that.
Yeah, definitely, exactly. So I'll gladly pay more a monthly payment, $150 if I can get $1,500 a month in rent more. But yeah, and think about. Let's say you have a loan on that 2-unit for $2,000 a month, and so your monthly mortgage payment's $2,000, and you've got rents of $1,500 and $1,500. Cool, everything's good, everything's great. You've got some cash flow coming in.
Yep.
Now you've got one vacancy because they've moved, and now you've got to do a tenant turnover. That takes a month or two. Well, now you've got $1,500 coming in, and your mortgage is $2,000.
Right.
So now you're actually coming out of pocket to pay the mortgage.
Right.
Which, if you've set up your reserves, you have plenty of reserves.
Okay.
Plus, you haven't spent the cash flow that you've been making all along. You'll be fine. However, it would be nice if you had 3 units or 4 units because you're not gonna have to worry about that.
I never even personally thought about that as even just someone that's looked into all this. Like, it does protect you. If you have 4 units and one of them leaves, hypothetically, you're more protected because you have 3 other units that are paying.
Yeah, they're picking up the slack and covering the mortgage, no problem.
Right.
I've got 3-unit with 2 tenants, 3rd and 1st floor left at the same exact time. So I'm having to cover some of that mortgage.
Yeah.
But, we're able to go through and renovate them very quickly, actually. 2 units, floors and paint and everything done. And we're going to be able to, put it, get some people back in there. But, again, if I didn't have those reserves and I hadn't been, if I'd been spending all the cash flow or
just
doing
not
that,
smart with the money.
then I'd be, panicking, right? Or I maybe wouldn't have done like quality renovations. I might have just re-rented it the way it was.
Right.
But, both units did need some, love.
Right. To put it,
So it's, but again, if you want to be hands off, then maybe I wouldn't have done anything. But
Right.
like most people want to, provide
just
quality housing.
I was gonna say, just a good place to live.
Yeah,
just
quality housing.
It's just I feel like it's not only just having respect for yourself and the property that you own. It's just respecting the people that are going to be coming in.
Yeah.
Like if you're like you start buying a bunch of these, and especially if if you're in the greater Manchester area, let's say, and you're known for having houses that are falling apart,
Yeah.
it's going to quickly ruin your reputation a little bit.
Everyone knows the good landlords and the bad landlords. We'll
landlords.
let's say the bad landlords.
So then when you're looking at houses, let's say 2, 3, 4, 3 or 4 unit,
Yeah.
you said that there's a way to evaluate it based off the rents.
Yep.
I know it might be a little bit more in detail than just how do you do it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
on a broad spectrum, like how are you kind of using those rent payments to look at, okay, this property is likely going to cash flow or it's likely not going to.
Yep. So there's calculators everywhere. Bigger Pockets has a calculator. I've got a version of a calculator myself. You can look them up online. You can, send me a message and I can send you mine. But it's a spreadsheet.
Yep.
When I say calculator, it's a spreadsheet. So there's certain pieces that you want to plug in and it calculates for you. You're going to plug in your asking price or offer price, the interest rate. Those are going up right now, which actually those DSCR loans are becoming competitive with, some of the other loans with the interest rates.
Yeah.
The rents we want to plug in. That's why I want to know what are the rents, and then I also want to know, are these market rents? If they're in the 900s, probably not. So we don't want to do anything with that yet, but we want to know, what truly market rent is versus what's, being rented at right now. We want to know, taxes, property taxes annually. We want to know, water sewer bills. We want to know, any heating or electricity costs that the owner needs to pay for.
Yeah. Probably gonna get home insurance too.
Yeah, and home
like
insurance costs. And Cross Insurance Agency, who I use, they pretty much $2,000 or $2,100
Right.
on all the properties that that we own, and the clients of mine have also requested quotes on and stuff.
Yep.
So we can get a good idea on those and get those numbers, and then from all that, again, just kind of broad. We go down and we see that, okay, it shows us our cash flow, which we should also include into our numbers that we're plugging in, some maintenance and repairs set aside. So some people will do just like a blanket, 10% of monthly rent income setting aside,
Yeah.
For each capital expenses,
Yep.
Maintenance and repairs. And then that'll get us our cash flow. So cash flow is not my mortgage payment, my rents, and what's the difference? Because we need to set aside for maintenance, repairs, capital expenses, any utility bills, and let's not forget vacancy.
I was just
Which
going
I
to
almost
ask.
did.
I was just going to ask that. Do you account for vacancy? Because I didn't hear it.
Yeah, you got to account for vacancy. Right now, you can, in the last 2 years, you could literally 1% vacancy you can account for, or 0%. And vacancy is just how long it's going to go until you can find somebody.
Right.
5% vacancy is average and probably just a good standard just to keep on the calculators, 5% vacancy. And that sets aside money and takes it out of that calculation.
Right.
So when we analyze that, we look at, okay, there's a couple other factors, cap rate and cash on cash return. And those are in percentage formats.
Right.
So cap rates are going to really for commercial, so 5 units and above. But they have at least, they're good to know when you look at property to property. And you need to analyze a lot of properties to see what normal is, or call me and I'll give you an idea as to what like normal is.
Yeah.
And then cash on cash return, it's a percentage again, and some are going to be low, is less than 10% in my
Yep.
investing strategy. I want to see 10% or greater cash on cash return.
Yep.
Because then I know that I'm beating the stock market.
Right.
Because what's the stock market going to get us? Maybe 6-7%
Right.
return.
Right. Year on year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what the cash on cash return is. It's based on the year. So I know at the end of the year I'll have made a 10% return or greater.
So now is that 10% on the total rents received, or is that like on the purchase price? Like, what is that percentage based off of?
Yep. So that percentage is based off of the amount of money that I had to output. So
Gotcha.
my down payment
Yep.
and closing costs.
Gotcha.
So
you're
if-
making 10% of your money, essentially.
Exactly.
That's
So
what it is.
$50,000 out. Okay, and I've got a 10% return. Perfect. I know that that's a good number for me.
Yeah.
And what I look for is 10% or above.
Right.
And depending on the market you're looking at, you're going to have cash on cash return in Berlin, Claremont, Colebrook be very high
Yeah.
because home prices are low.
Right.
You can get a 3-unit for 180 grand in Colebrook.
It's so crazy to think about.
So you're not going to spend a lot of money out of your pocket to get it.
Yeah.
And rents are, $900 a month, $1,000 a month. So rents are good.
Right.
So you're going to have a high cash on cash return.
Right.
But do you want to invest in Colebrook?
Right.
Yes, no, maybe so. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And there's different strategies for different people.
Right.
Cash flow, great. There's definitely markets in New Hampshire. You don't have to go out of the state to get good cash flow. If that's what you're solely looking for. But then there's also appreciation.
Right.
For instance, let's go to Portsmouth.
Yeah.
Your cash on cash return is going to be very small, 2-3% maybe.
Yeah.
In Portsmouth, because you got to spend $980,000 just for a 2-unit.
Yeah.
Never mind a 3.
Never like, right?
So you're going to spend a lot of money, but you're going to get very likely going to get a high appreciation
Right.
in that market.
Right. I've always said when I start getting into real estate, that it's a long-term play for me versus, investing, and I'll still invest in my retirement and all that stuff. But if you can just hold on to a property for 20 or 30 years, however long, until you're like, yeah, I'm ready to retire.
Yeah.
And obviously, the U.S. economy has shown that over a 30-year time frame, a $400,000 house is probably going to be worth $600,000 or $700,000 in 30 years. So if you just kind of look at it in that perspective of, okay, yeah, the cash, I want it to cash flow. I don't want to be spending money out of my pocket every month, obviously, to have this investment. But if it can get me a little cash flow, and then in 30 years I'm $700,000 richer,
Yeah.
that's not bad.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not bad.
So a good balance of both. And again, it just depends on what your goals are, right? From the buyer's perspective. Even let's just say the west side of Manchester is going to be a little bit better cash flow than the north end of Manchester.
Right.
Again, because rents and prices. They both are fantastic areas to be buying in and having rental properties.
And that's just what
multifamilies.
we're working with a real estate agent, obviously, like
Yeah.
yourself, that knows the area
Yep.
and knows things like that. That's where your expertise is invaluable to people because
and knows
again,
what you want.
Right.
Hey, you told me you wanted a bunch of cash flow. Let's
Right.
go here.
Right.
You told me you want a good mix of both. Let's go here.
let's go here,
Yep.
right? And you can guide people into where to put their money, where to invest. Because I would think a place like Salem, New Hampshire is probably something where the cash flow isn't that great. But
There's some great 2 units actually in this area. Maybe not Salem, but I think Pelham. I've seen some.
yeah,
They're like $750,000.
yeah.
I don't think you're gonna get rents of
$3,600 a month.
Each unit,
Right.
to really make that a good cash flowing
Right,
property.
right.
But if you've got 50% down, that's a different story.
It's a different story.
You've got great
Right.
cash flow at that
Right.
point. So it just depends.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
I mean, just thinking like Salem, there's not a lot of multifamilies in Salem to begin with, but
Which is crazy.
yeah, it is kind of weird.
There's not a lot of it's tough to find a single family house in Salem.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I know.
Yeah, I know you know. Congrats on getting one.
Yeah, you gotta find the diamond in the rough sometimes.
Yeah.
And you just have to Salem's obviously tough, but it's funny how each town just differs from investment perspective. Like obviously Manchester and Nashua are kind of like the most well-known kind of southern New Hampshire towns to invest in. You don't really think of like Atkinson as like a town where you're like, I'm gonna go buy a multi in Atkinson or
rare.
Plastow or like something
rare.
like that.
Amherst, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
How many multifamilies do you think are in
I
Amherst, New
don't.
Hampshire?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I know about Amherst is Jeff lives there. That's about the
Oh,
only.
okay. Well, Amherst, New Hampshire, there's probably one or two, and there's one apparently, right in downtown, because I heard this guy's like, oh yeah, I just bought a 6-unit in Amherst. I'm like, in Amherst, New Hampshire?
Right.
Where is there a 6-unit?
Right.
He's like, oh, it's right in the old Center Village.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. It's the older part of the town, and yeah,
Right.
maybe there's the multi-units there, but,
Right.
but like, yeah, there's just areas that don't necessarily have that type of thing, or you're gonna have to really dig to find someone who has one, and,
Right.
Go after that.
Right. Right. Can you speak at all to like, not towards like commercial side, but more of like, investing in like industrial kind of buildings or anything like that? Because I know that is what Salem has a good amount of, is like business parks and things like that. Do you have any like insight on that at all? I know it's a very specialized field. Because I don't. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I would defer that to the commercial division at Remax.
Okay.
Our office has an entire commercial division. That's not something I've been focusing on. 3 to 4 unit multifamily.
Yep.
Mixed use. So mixed use meaning, residential and commercial. I am comfortable with that. I usually then just jump over to the Remax commercial and ask them about the more commercial
side of it, I guess.
pieces. Like if there's two commercial units on there, I'll get their opinions on their values and how they're how they equate in the entire picture, and then I can go, okay, now I can make a better idea on that. So
Right.
yeah, no, that's definitely something for the Remax commercial division.
Gotcha. And then the last question I got is, more short-term rentals. I got a ton of questions on those. The Airbnbs, VRBOs, like, I don't know how long those are going to last for, in my opinion, just simply because I think that you're going to start seeing like states crack down on the fact that your house isn't licensed as a hotel. I think they're going to start cracking down on that so they can get more tax money. But do you have any like kind of insight on that, on terms of, how to analyze for Airbnbs? I know you said you're more on the 3 to 4 unit, but I don't know if you...
I've looked into that too. That was obviously, and it still is, something that's pretty popular, and especially over the last few years where everyone's getting away and, they're looking, you can get one for 10% down. You can get a second home,
Right.
which you can turn to an Airbnb,
Right.
Or short-term rental.
Right.
I guess is really the better term for it. So like there's actually calculators for that too. AirDNA is they have a rentalizer feature.
All the damn terms.
Yeah,
AirDNA, rentalizer.
Yeah, so they've got a feature on there that you can do to calculate its potential profit. It's with the increase of. So I've been listening to a lot of podcasts recently on like, how we're seeing the shifting in the market and what's potentially likely. And a lot of people have the same thoughts, is that, a lot of hedge funds were buying these because they can rent them out, make decent money, and they don't need to sell. Like they've got a 10 to 20 year horizon on all of these properties that they bought. They're not going to be liquidating.
Right.
The mom and pops, or the people that got into it, because they want a second home and maybe try the Airbnb thing, they might find that it's not as lucrative as they once thought, or maybe because of how depending on what happens in this recessionary market and all that stuff, people might stop traveling as much. So they may end up needing to sell. There might be opportunities out there, and yes, towns are and they're doing it all the time, cracking down on what they're gonna allow, how they're gonna allow it. Conway, Madison, Bartlett right now are still, actually the Superior, I think they went to the Supreme Court and like they voted it like that the town couldn't enforce no short-term rentals.
Right.
But they're still trying to fight that.
Yeah,
they're still trying to shut those down. But really, like Jackson, New Hampshire, you just it's a permitting process, and you got to follow some rules. Like, just do that.
Right, and you're good.
Like, yeah, just do that. Like fire extinguishers, safety stuff, and an annual permit that you pay for.
Right.
Okay.
That sounds easy enough to me.
That's fine. Like,
right.
like we can all work together here. Like,
Right.
people love the housing.
Right.
I think if we do truly, start to really feel the heat of this recession and inflation, I think people won't be traveling as much. However, the people that unfortunately are the most affected are the people that are sort of on the lower end of this, and you're going to see the higher income individuals and the more luxury people still travel.
Right.
And I think those Airbnbs are still going to be very popular.
Right.
Because those people typically aren't affected anyways by inflation and recession and all that stuff.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how
it all pans out.
Yeah, a lot.
'Cause this is like the first time we're actually going to see it play out in a recessionary market.
Yeah. So and a lot of people that are older and have been through more things and seen this happen, more than once, kind of has been saying that. So we'll see.
Yeah,
it should be interesting.
I'm kind of intrigued to see. Not to go out dark and gloomy, but this will be my first time ever going through this. Like
we're
last time,
actually like alert enough.
Right. Last time I was 10, so I was not at all alert to what was happening in the world.
Yeah, I was a little older, but I still wasn't alert of what was going on in the world.
Right.
I was still young enough. I was like, yeah, whatever.
Right. So I'm interested to see, because what businesses and all that comes out of this is like, that's what you should be investing in. Like if real estate comes out, which it probably is going to, you should probably invest in real estate because it can make it through any market. You're going to see.
We're still going to see an 8% appreciation this year.
Right.
Regardless of what happens.
Right.
Like,
and I've actually heard that it's probably going to be for the next 2, 3, 4 years. We're not going to see 20, 30% like we've been seeing.
We won't see that again.
But we're going to see higher than average. We're going to see 6 to 8%. I've heard actually over. That's what they're thinking anday.
It's going to go back to
a demand
normal.
issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. The demand is still very high.
Right. Right.
For the lack of homes.
Right. Oh, exactly.
But Generation X is looking for homes.
Yeah. I've done so many loans for people that are like 22. 23, they're coming out as like engineers making like 110. They're like, I need a house. I'm like, you just graduated. Like, what is happening?
No kidding. I was actually listening to a fellow real estate agent talk about this last night on her video, Christy Whitten. Nice job, by the way.
Nice job.
Yep. Baby boomers. Baby boomers, unlike any generation of baby boomers in the past, they're buying.
Wow.
38% of their buyers are baby boomers.
That's wild.
So typically, what she was saying, and she had statistics from NAR, I believe, they typically stay in their homes. Right. Like they just stay in their homes.
Yeah. Like you're retiring there, and that's it.
Yeah. Or they go to like a retirement home or something. They're all right now selling, have significant equity. They've sold and they're buying. They don't have kids.
Right.
Like they're buying.
Right.
They're buying the properties.
It's so
along
wild.
with Generation X there.
Right.
And those are two large categories of buyers, of people in our country.
Right. And I think that's what a lot of it is honestly like my generation. Like they're just like, yeah, I want to buy a house. I'm like, I literally probably get a call or two a day of either people that I know or, referrals from agents where, they're younger too. They're like 23, 24. So their friend group's looking to buy. And it's like, this is crazy. Like I felt like I was rushing into buying when I bought at 24. And it's like, this is wild. That this many people are also feeling like, yeah, I'm good. I'm ready to buy.
I'm ready to do it.
And you look at it and you're like, yeah, no, you are. Like you're good to go.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
I just don't think you've seen that in generations past where like at this young people are like, let's get into it. Like,
right.
Let's
Well,
buy a house.
And think about how and what school has done and I guess this in society is when everyone comes out of school, comes out of college, they're in these different jobs than they were 20 years ago.
Right.
20 years ago, you were getting out of school and maybe going, I shouldn't say 20 years ago, but 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you're going to go swing a hammer somewhere or something like that.
Right.
Whereas everyone's a mechanical engineer, tech, software engineer. Because that's the way the world is now transitioned to is everything's tech and stuff like that. So yeah, you're just getting all these people that are coming out of school making buku bucks.
Right, right. And especially, I mean, think about it, at 23, you're making 80 grand a year. You're like, this is amazing.
Yeah, you can buy a house with that.
Right.
I came out of school not making that, but I was like,
I didn't either. But that was my own choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Do you got anything else? I think we covered a lot there.
We covered a lot. I think, certainly if we want to break down, spreadsheets and numbers and really go through all that, contact me. Contact Matt from to get your
loan side.
Yeah, you get your lending stuff in squared away and figure out what the best products are for you.
Right. And I think this just shows the importance of having a good team around you, right? Where it's not like the agent doesn't know anything about investments and doesn't really understand where to look in that stuff, but the lender does. Or the lender has no idea about investment loans, but the agent's telling them what to do. I think this highlights the importance of having a good team around you when everyone's working together. They're giving you all the options and you're in good hands versus just guessing and hoping that you stick the dart and you're good to go.
Yep. Which options are gonna work and seamlessly working back and forth with the lender and the agent.
Yeah, absolutely. But we will see you guys on episode 3 to TBD, but Money Matters podcast with Rich and Matt.
That's right. That's why money matters.